So, Surya, welcome. It's a real pleasure to meet you. You
You
have
too.
talked about one love through music uh,
Yeah.
as a kind of, I don't know, mission statement. Is that fair to say? What does that line mean to you?
A mission statement, a reminder
Mm,
of to self and a reminder to my own consciousness and a hope. I would say if it was a mission that it was to be, that it would be a mission. I hope that is transmitted through our consciousness as a whole, as human beings, that we all have been blessed to see, if not perhaps to experience, but to see and to hear of the concept of love. Those of us have even been lucky enough to experiencing it, whether that's through family or friends, loved ones, or our own ways of creative self, or just the life that we're blessed to live. So for me, the spirit of universal love and consciousness is one that I hope I can continue to advocate for through my music and with the sounds that are lucky enough to be a part of something called from my being. I hope that one love inspires one to not only find love for your own inner self, but love for the person who you are looking to be, or who looks to inspire you, or you've inspired by, or even ones that we have conflict with, because we have conflicts with ourselves too and others. Um, because I'm real into peace. I'm real hoping that, between joy and elation and despondence, I know those can all occur, but peace and equilibrium, I feel that perhaps if we can go towards that through the spirit of love, of one love, then that'll be better than not.
there's a real optimism in what you're saying, both in terms of that life view, but also the power of music to further that view of the world. Is it a conscious effort for you to be optimistic, or does it come naturally?
I feel that part of it can come naturally, but also the other part of it has to be worked on. It has to be, more than anything, reached for,
Mhm.
because I find that we as people, that we are built in with an automatic amount of resilience, a powerful resilience. Look at the way our own bodies look to regenerate cells when we are sick or when we are ill, how it'll fight off of, I know it's not good to say a post pandemic, but like, like, no, it was terrible. It was, I didn't have any fun. I've never had so much DoorDash in my life. I feel like it's kind of like we've been able to, even when we're ill, we've been able to, so like, oh, I got better in a couple of days, and we think we're gonna get better. Like, we're built in with this resilience. It's not like, oh, I twisted my ankle or I jammed my finger, I'm never gonna use my hand again. Like, we think like we're gonna be able to come back from this. So I want that automatic sense of optimism that we do find, I believe, is inculcated in a big part of our minds and our bodies, to transmit even more through, hopefully, a more, if it is a spiritual existence, if it is a introspective existence, if it is a more harmonious existence, if it's a more peaceful existence, for that optimism to carry throughout. Because I feel we're at a time in our climate where, like, more joy won't be bad for anyone. I don't want to be happy. Like, no, you do. You do.
Yeah, it's good for you. I had never thought about optimism in those terms before, and to say that to recognize the connection between the natural healing process and that sort of perspective that things naturally will go well or get better or what have you. Um, Optimism for me has always been kind of like this bottomless well that I don't really
Hmm.
understand. I appreciate it. I'm glad that I'm lucky enough to be an optimistic person, but it kind of it kind of fascinates me. I don't fully understand its origin. Is that something you think about a
Mm.
lot?
I wouldn't say I think about it a lot, but I think in order to have optimism, you have to have some sort of faith in something. And I'm not speaking about like a religion. I'm speaking about you have to have a belief
Mm.
that it'll work out a little bit. Like you gotta have faith somehow. Not to I love George Michael, but not to quote this song, is that in that sense, it's like if given any other option, we hope to have this sort of not only resilience but optimism because I'm not saying that this is something that I'll have every day, even though I do want it to be my general disposition. But for me, in my mental health journey, which is one that I'm on every day, I'm a person who manages depression. I am a person that goes through those particular senses of my mental health that I feel are not only my own um, path that I take, but ones that I would like to be very vocal about and saying that for all of us in our mental health journey, that if optimism isn't just our automatic default, I get that. I totally get that. It's possible though.
Mhm.
It's just not easy. It's not easy. I think if we can both acknowledge that optimism is possible and that universal consciousness and one love is possible, but it's not easy. We can say both are true,
It takes
you
work.
know? Yes, is it just look, we're in a world right now that is, let's just say we're overstimulated in many of the ways.
Is that the
So
fundamental issue with the world today as you see it? Is it overstimulation, or is that only one part of what challenges that sense
I
of?
think a big part of I think a big part of our fundamental issue is that sometimes we're trying to reinvent something that was already created perfectly, as opposed to being a part and woven into the fabric of certain areas. We as humanity, I feel sometimes we want to put our own spin on what is already great. Like, we're not going to create another ocean. It was great the first time that it came around. It's amazing. Find one person that's like, I don't want to watch a beautiful sunset at the beach. That's just not my thing. Most of us will go for that on the day. But what we'll find is that we'll try to put a different like structure or a different kind of material object in front of us that's supposed to already enhance what is just naturally underneath our feet in the sand. And so for that, I feel, or I think, or I've certainly been guilty of myself, is where my ego starts working a little bit overtime. And I gotta humble myself. You know what I mean? I gotta humble myself to the elements. And that for me, I feel we as a humanity, if we're able to be both optimistic and humble ourselves to the gift that we've been given, such as the planet, such as the ability to gather and communicate, then we can have a better day. And I hope that my music is something that can assist within that, especially in the personal foray of taking one's mental health in a space where that can even be possible. That can even be not even possible, but maybe like the default.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
mm, mhm.
So, if one is in the home or in the space or in the commute or, slogging through another rough shift of a job that is just there because we know you're just trying to keep a roof over your head and, provide for yourself or your loved ones. Like, I hope my music can help that. So, if you're going through that, you can zone out with the sounds and know that there is a meditative space that is available. That is your human right. It is your human right to be able to take peace for yourself and connect on the within.
And that is the focus of your music? Is that an appropriate way to describe it?
Yeah, uh, I have really two concurrent focuses. And one are to hopefully be supportive of not only one's journey, my own journey on the internal and the external plane, but to also to pay homage to the blessing that I've received on the place that I was able to grow up. around the luminaries and beautiful, incredible, profound, spiritually profound musicians that I am able to call family, that I'm able to call my most closest connection of my heart and soul. So I would like to be of service with the music, sure. And I'd like to be of enjoyment in that service with the music, sure. But I also want to pay homage to those that laid the path down greatly for the rest of us to hopefully emulate or at least do our small part to honor that path that they so courageously left for us.
I really admire that about you, that you are not just prepared to, but seem to take great satisfaction from talking about those you've been associated with musically in your life. Alice Coltrane, obviously, being the most famous example. I think a lot of younger artists like yourself would be somewhat hesitant to talk too much about another artist, would want the focus to be on themselves. But I don't get that impression with you at all.
Thank you for calling me young. This is
Hardly.
the greatest thing I've ever done. This is the best day I've ever had. That's interesting, but I get it. There's such a and now is at a point for me for myself too, though, is that I realized that I was a critic who was playing an instrument.
Hmm.
That's all that was. I was just a critic who happened to have a piano in front of me until life humbled me and I had to become a fan of music who actually had an instrument to express his journey upon. Once that shift happened, that is when things started to go more within. And I've always, of course, been grateful to, have the background, the musical lineage that I've been lucky enough. I don't know what I did right, but I'm so glad for that. And being happy for others' success or others' deep levels of their own expression only helps our own. And it can be any medium. If it's somebody who's an amazing writer or an amazing painter or a person that just gets up and just like knocks out 50 hard hours a week at whatever gig that it is that they do, you know, that commutes an hour each way, 50 hours, you know, takes a quick lunch, still finds a way to stay positive and work out and have time for the family. You could be the dude working for the electric company, or you could be, the lady who's just, running, who's running a law firm, you whatever it is, or you could be the person like I see these people cleaning train stations in New York at 2, 3 in the morning, earnestly. That's hard work.
Mhm.
That's super hard work, and to still remain, I see them bopping to their music. I'm like, that's so inspiring. I hope for that person or any of those aforementioned examples, um, that we are encouraging in that sense. I'm a person that's really into sports and athletics. I'm a super big fan of sports. So for me, coming from a community, a spiritual community, and also being into sports, like I just like the concept of a team, of a fellowship, of like cheering each other on. Like, why not? you know, why not? And I hope to do that sure when talking about people who I love their music or individuals who I get really inspired by just because of how prolific they are in their own particular medium of what they do. Um, or the people that like I'll see like a baseball player who's been in the minor leagues for like 10 years and finally gets his shot and comes up for like a game or two, has the time of his life. His family and friends are there, watch him play his first game, and then he never plays like another week again. Like that was it. That was the shot. I admire that kind of
Mm.
resilience because to be able to take that level of resilience and toil away at it, and to make the sacrifices that come with just being present for yourself. it's so difficult for us to be present for ourselves. So difficult.
There's
And I
also
admire those that are.
yeah, there's also uh, a kind of beauty with great athleticism, comparable to dance, for example.
Mhm.
I think is
Mm.
often dismissed. There's so much um, ugliness in sport, in particular professional sport, that I think we sometimes forget that there's also some extraordinary beauty there.
Oh, everybody likes to talk bad about somebody until they get on the court with them. Let me tell you, you can criticize a basketball player all you want, and I mean any one of them, whether that is in the men's league or the ladies' league.
Mm.
Try to get on the court with any one of them, and life will get different. I know. I have been on those courts. It is not playtime out there. It is for them because they're just so good. And I feel the same way. It's kind of like, when when somebody says I dabble in playing an instrument, then like you get up there with like, somebody really, really good. You're like, "Ah, maybe I'm gonna chill out. You know what I mean? I love to sing. I'm not gonna sing against Mariah Carey. That's a different level. And so let's just appreciate this greatness. I feel like we're in such an interesting time right now where greatness is almost like taken for granted,
Mm.
and I'm not in that zone at all. I'm like, if you're great, you're great. Like, and just there's levels of greatness. I get it. Not everybody can be the MVP of the moment. I understand that, but I really find that for us as people, we have like a really good chance here right now with all the information that is available to just be appreciative of what a lot of us are trying to do out here in whatever form that it is, and know that like what it takes to show up on a daily basis, like that is a lot.
Mm.
That's a lot. Like I super respect that.
Do you
And
appreciate when you sit down with other musicians and you're able to share the stage or the studio at such a high level?
I appreciate it, but I also appreciate it if I'm not playing with them. Like I have no problem carrying the instruments or setting up or lugging some gear, well, at least back is still while the bones are still able to do so. Like, I to be able to play and express is great. I'm all for that. I love that. But there's other ways to contribute. That could be cleaning up after everybody eats lunch. That could be making a pot of tea, while everyone is getting ready to start again. You know, that could be gathering the music stands or putting the chairs back. Like you can get just as much satisfaction out of that too, you know? So as much as I love to play the piano and keyboards because that's my thing, like I can still have joy in that and special for me in that, but I can still get joy in just being a participant or an observer too.
Where does that humility come from? Is it having grown up on the ashram that Alice Coltrane founded, or is there more to it than that?
I would hope to my dearest of true dreams as a human being that I could emulate a percentage, a fraction, an iota, a minuscule thousandths place of a thousandths place decimal of the humility that Swami Turyasangi Tanana exemplified every day in her life. I would hope to be walking in that path one day, um, because she is to this day the most humble yet powerful human being I have ever encountered on a daily basis or weekly basis or frequent basis. So that has been the example, yes, that I have seen in different situations, not just the, ashram, but if she was out at her concert, those kind of things that we were lucky enough to see here and there.
What was it about her that had such an extraordinary influence on the people around her?
Complete devotion and honesty concurrent. When there's an individual who is not only the kindest person you've ever met, but the most devotional person you've ever seen, the most generous person you've ever seen, the most honest person you've ever seen. When all of those plus more are in one individual, that is the draw, because that's energy that you don't need to see. That's energy that you can feel. That comes from another source. That comes from above the stars. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. For me, as a child, I always wanted her to approve of the musical direction that I was hoping to take. I was hoping for that. I feel like I still got a ways to go. And I don't know, that might be a lifelong thing when I think about it. But in that sense, I really am, again, optimistic that paying homage in each note, each song, each sound can at least say I made an honest effort
I
from
imagine
my heart.
I imagine that would be a wonderful lifetime thing, though, that it applies a kind of focus to your work. I would think, and gives you a greater sense of purpose than perhaps other artists have.
I feel like a lot of people are going for a lot of that zone. They just have different names for it. The reasons why people play are the reasons why they play. Um, they vary in so many ways, but we find that they have a tendency to come back to a really deep soul kind of expressive, expansive kind of mentality, or even beyond mentality, just their being. So however one might term it, I think that we all are on a very similar path. And the people who would play for the just look at me, look at me, look at me stuff, like, hey, good for you, do your thing. But I've also found that some of the best musicians I've ever seen in my life are some of the nicest people. And I have to think that that's a correlation, you
Mm.
know? I mean, some of the nicest musicians I've ever heard in my life are the nicest people by far, like super kind, encouraging, all that stuff. So that's a lesson in there for me. If I want to get to a level of like, proficiency and expression that is at a level that is pretty high, then I can't be mean on the way. You know what I mean? You gotta be cool.
Yeah. Well, it requires a kind of openness and vulnerability, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the one thing I will say. Vulnerability. Like I'm a real big R&B fan, especially from the 90s and before. And I love the lyrics because they all had such a deep level of vulnerability that they were expressing. Even if the clothes were glitzy or the sounds or whatever, or the video budget was astronomical, the lyrics were like, please, look at James Brown, please. And we know.
Mhm.
Yeah, he lived in the fast lane, but he said please. So there was a humility and a vulnerability in that even um the most notorious of musicians still had this vulnerability in them. And that vulnerability to me, it has to, like you said, be termed as an openness, as some sort of pathway, some sort of portal, some sort of avenue that will not take one to a place where they're closed off, you know, from um not where they're not closed off from the potential blessing of whatever it is they're expressing in that moment.
Does that come out in in the gentleness of your work? or how do you express that idea?
For me, if things sound gentle sometimes for me, it's also coming from a place of deep mourning,
Mm,
deep, you know, shedding musical tears, and a way of finding a therapy, if you will, in the homage that's being paid. So if there's a gentleness that can occur, it's not only the effort of wanting to be supportive and have the music be of service to someone's better day somehow. Like if someone took this album and they said I played it every night for my baby before they went to sleep, I would be doing backflips.
yeah.
Or if somebody said, "Hey, I took this album and my loved one was in the hospital and I took it there for them because they were going through a hard time and we're not sure how it's going to go, but I played it for them because it set a vibe in the room." I would be honored. I would be absolutely honored and hopeful that it could provide some sort of soundtrack that we're looking to take towards solace. So if that gentleness is there too, then great. But if that same person in the hospital said that I played this album and eventually my loved one did pass away because it was their time to go, and this music is what we use to kind of take our minds and our hearts to a softer place to deal with our own emotional plane that we had to deal with that individual, I would also be honored
Mm.
because it wouldn't even be about me honored. I would be thankful and grateful to be a supportive entity in that kind of aspect. So that gentleness is there too, but also for the people who I love, who are some of them are here on earth, some of them are not. One of the songs on my album named Megan Janevi is for a concert promoter. Her name is Megan Stabile. And she's out here. She was out here in New York for a while and she did a lot. And she left the body in the middle of June.
Mm,
She left the body by her own hand. And she listened to my album a lot before,
mm,
because I gave it to her early because she and I had a very close personal relationship. And she listened to it a lot before she took off. And I'm just so glad that, although of course I'm super sad that she's gone, but if there's any kind of like, well, I'm happy that she heard someone want to have something for her that felt like it for her, it helped her sleep a little bit better at night. Because a lot of people sleep is kind of like a tough place.
mhm.
Not all of not all of us can knock out automatically like my son can, which is fall asleep in a car, in 20 minutes. But that's where I hope that this can just be in a place where people know that my music is not my music, that my album is not my album. My album is merely just a thank you to those that it's for. Yes, I played keyboards on it. Yes, I played the synthesizer on it, but that was just because I was able to be given something from a different source of light that I was just hoping to pass along.
I'm very sorry to hear that story and for your loss.
Appreciate it.
The this album is strikes me as deeply personal in two ways. I get a very strong sense of you, never having met you until today.
Yeah.
Listening to the album did feel very much like quite a connective experience. But it also is very much like you're describing. To me, it is an album that you really take in, and it becomes a personal, not just a favorite, but a reflection of period of time, a feeling,
Mhm.
what have you. It has that kind of um, ability to connect, I think, with the listener. And so, congratulations on that.
I'm grateful that you felt that way or had that experience for yourself. Truly, um, that's beautiful to hear, and it is definitely personal in every way. I have the names of my children that are the song names. I have the names of my best friend's mother, who also passed away. She actually drove me to the first recording session for this album.
Wow.
And then she took off to this other side of the stars um around the time that the next recording sessions happened for it. And you know, to and she's fewer people on earth will ever be a bigger fan. She called all of my best friend and all the rest of our crew. She called us her sons. So she had about a million sons. And she loved us all deeply. And she's a very unique individual. Her name is Margie. So the song Waves for Margie is for her. And right before I recorded I Love Do Sophie on the album, I had an extensive conversation with her about, you know, my oldest child. And, you know, some of just for me, the journey of parenting, which is such a trip. And
It is that.
it's work. It's great. It's work. But so yeah, made it all personal. It's all very personal for me. Um, I want there to be I want there to be transparency from me as a artist, as a person, as an entity to those who I'm sharing the music with. I don't want an individual to have to feel like they need to wade through, you know, some web of intricate code just to figure out kind of where I'm coming from. I want to be able to reach out and us to reach toward each other as human beings in the spirit of one love, in the spirit of the blessings called life, and feel a connectivity that is just human respect for one another. And so that transparency, that vulnerability is what I hope transmits.